Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Doc, and today we will be talking about my favorite X-Men character, Kurt Wagner, aka Nightcrawler. The mutant with a demonic look and the ability to teleport in and out of reality to whatever spot and time he chooses. A man of the Catholic faith, with a kind and humble heart, even in the face of fear and prejudice from those around him. Nightcrawler inspires many to keep moving forward regardless of the society's views on mutants, always carrying the love of God regardless of who it is, whether they deserve it or not. Let's go ahead and take a deep dive on his history and origins next. Nightcrawler, whose real name is Kurt Wagner, is a beloved character from the Marvel's X-Men universe. Known for his distinct appearance and compassionate nature, he was created by writer Lean Wein and Dave Cockrum. He had first appeared in Giant Size X-Men #1, 1975. Born in Germany, Kurt was abandoned at birth due to his demonic appearance. His blue skin, yellow eyes, and prehensile tail. Despite this rejection, he grew up with a kind heart and a deep faith, traits that would later make him one of the most morally grounded X-Men members. Kurt's early life was both marked by tragedy and adventure. He was raised by a traveling circus in Moravia, where his agility and acrobatic skills made him a popular performer. However, when the locals discovered his mutant appearance, they hunted him down as a demon, forcing him to flee. He was saved and recruited by Professor Charles Xavier, who offered him both refuge and purpose as a X-Men. This moment marked the beginning of Nightcrawler's journey as both a superhero and a symbol of acceptance. One of Nightcrawler's defining traits is his teleportation ability, which allows him to vanish and reappear instantly in another location, leaving behind a puff of smoke and a scent of brimstone. His mutant powers make him a formidable combatant and a valuable tactical member of the X-Men. Combined with acrobatics and swordsmanship, Nightcrawler's fighting style is elegant, fluid, and unpredictable. Despite his demonic looks, his powers are used for good, an ironic and powerful contrast that underscores his character's depth. Faith and morality play central roles in Nightcrawler's story. A devout Catholic who often struggles with the tension between his outward appearance and his inner goodness, this spiritual dimension sets him apart from many other superheroes, as he constantly seeks to reconcile with his faith and his identity as a mutant. His empathy and optimism serve as a moral compass for the team, reminding both his teammates and the readers that true heroism comes from compassion, not appearance. Over the years, Nightcrawler has become one of the most enduring and inspirational X-Men. He has led various teams, died heroically to eventually return from the afterlife, symbolizing hope and redemption. His story continues to explore themes of faith, belonging, and forgiveness, making him one of the most nuanced and relatable characters in Marvel's library. Nightcrawler's journey, feared outcast to heroic leader, remains a testament to the idea that beauty and goodness is often lies beneath the surface. Now it's time for the second part of the video where I talk about my own personal thoughts and opinions of him. Now the first question we got to ask is, how was I introduced to Nightcrawler? So, ironically enough, I think that's pretty much most everybody who's basically got introduced to any superheroes was through the X-Men movies. Specifically, X-Men 2 is when I was introduced to the character of Nightcrawler. I distinctly remember watching X-Men 2 as like a 7-year-old or 8-year-old when I first saw it, and remember seeing with my little brother Seth, watching him teleport around throughout the whole White House, and it's had that amazing scene there and really captivated me and my brother back then. And it's still a fantastic scene nonetheless. But also later on down the line, I would also do a little bit more research on the comics and read into a lot of what was in there, and found out like, oh wow, he's a little bit more fleshed out in the comics, even though he was kind of in the X-Men 2 film. He didn't reveal all of his character. And what I appreciate about the comics is that there's a lot more diverse problems as a man of faith, the person of the Catholic faith, which is interesting, and especially for me, who's a man of faith, who believes in God and Jesus. It's a very interesting dilemma not necessarily a dilemma, an interesting story piece to have in a comic book, because most of the time nowadays, I'm going to offend a few people, but all these woke ideas in comics kind of do not help. And I'm not just saying we need a bunch of conservative ideas all across comic books to just preach an agenda, but no, we need good stories, and I believe Nightcrawler's story is a good story. It's a balance of struggle and faith, which is interesting. Now, this also leads to my second question. What makes me enjoy Nightcrawler? That aspect versus the struggle with his faith is a fantastic reason. Another aspect is like his ability to teleport in and out, and how it's used as a way for tactics. Like if I remember, there's a cartoon called Wolverine and the Xmen, and we see Kurt teleport in and out of a flooded area and take the water out of a flooded area. Like it soups up the water alongside him, and he's just helping the water just sink ever slowly for the person to not drown in the sink. I think it's a sinking ship, I don't know, but it helped save that person out of that situation, which was a really cool idea. And I didn't think his powers would work like that, but it made me really rethink on how his ability works, because it's, from what I understand, he kind of snaps in and out of reality, as they explain it. Like he goes to another reality for a little bit, finds a spot that he's familiar with, and teleports right to it. That's one other thing. It's like his powers, his struggle as a man of faith, and the stories that you can tell through his appearance, learning how to struggle with that, learning how to deal with that. That is an excellent story piece. I mean, if you've read any of the older X-Men comics, it's great, and they still do that nowadays, which is amazing. And they haven't really messed with it, except maybe one aspect I don't like, and personally for me, this is also more woke ideas, is the fact that his mother, Mystique, which I did not add that detail in the explanation for the history and origins, because that's going to be a whole other complicated history, because comic books will be comic books. So, in one of the newer revised versions, he technically has two mothers and somehow conceives and kind of completely gets rid of Azazel, which is weird. Really, really weird. But I'm not a comic book writer and I don't work for Marvel, but I will say it is a strange detail. So, that also begs the question, which version do I prefer? Do I prefer the classic, when he was first introduced, midway through, between the newer and the old? Or do I prefer the X-Men 2 one? Honestly, I mean, I grew up with X-Men 2, but we don't spend a whole lot of time with them. I honestly prefer the comic version. Kind of more so at the beginning of his run, and then, I mean, he's still the same guy essentially in the newer stuff, but it's like, especially it's just with some of the weird stuff like being rebirthed at Krakoa or something like that. I'm like, it's a little. I'm a little. Well, here's the thing. If you know anything about comics, nobody dies permanently. Nobody dies permanently. Nobody dies permanently, and that includes anybody, whether a hero or a villain or an anti-villain, anti-hero. It doesn't matter. There's a possibility of them coming back regardless of who it is. So, especially when it comes to superheroes. Now, aspects I don't enjoy, I mentioned a few of them as I was going along. Honestly, just the confusing mess of parentage. I would have probably preferred to go without knowing who his parents were, to make it a little bit more like we didn't need to know that. Like, I don't want to have a whole social drama of history just show up. But, you know, that's how it is, and it's kind of interesting how it relates to a villain, which I like that aspect of it, but it's also like everybody keeps rewriting it to try to fit some sort of story mold that either works or doesn't. So it just depends. If you can't tell, yes, I'm on my white girl phase. I'm drinking a lot of pumpkin spice, so get used to seeing me drink some pumpkin spice coffee. So that also begs the question, what do I hope to see for his future runs and more stories that he'll be in? Honestly, to continue with his character, maybe add in more ideas of how people. I personally think, for me as a person of faith, one of the things that I struggle with is other people of faith. That would be an interesting aspect, which they kind of play into a little bit in the older comics with a certain character named Stryker, where certain beliefs kind of divide people. That's why there's branches in Christianity. That's why we have different denominations. I'm non-denominational myself, but what's interesting to me is it's like one of the hardest things for me as a person that believes in Jesus is, why are we so separated and segmented? Why are we so separated and segmented to all these different branches? And you go through all this history and finding out, like, okay, because this happened, because this happened, because this happened, and this happens, and somebody didn't like the color of the carpet. By the way, I'm serious. That is a real thing. Churches separated because of the color of the carpet. I'm not joking, which is ridiculous. And then there's like people that get separated because of different theology, like people believing in the Trinity, people not believing in the Trinity, people believing homosexuality is a sin, people not believing homosexuality is a sin. I would like to see his struggle with seeing the separation of fellow believers. I'd like to see that, honestly. Another thing that I would like to see is his struggles with certain beliefs as well in the Bible. Certain things that people wouldn't necessarily agree with. Something that tests his faith more and more. Stuff that he reads up more upon. Because there's a lot of stuff that it's going to be a little hard to read for some folks that have been outside of Jesus and then read. Now, I'm not saying just make it all about his beliefs and faith, even though that's literally a part of his character. But I want to see more of him, see the world around him, and see the problems that religion can cause, and not only cause, but more importantly, how it can also divide us very quickly, and which is a very unfortunate real problem that we see today. And it saddens me. It really does. It really does. Especially for a character that's so kind and humble as Nightcrawler, despite his appearance, who consistently shows love for anybody, regardless of who they are. Even in the struggle, even with struggling with that, he still treats people correctly. he still treats people with kindness, including his team members, and showing them that we need a moral compass to move forward as a team. And honestly, I hope we're able to see more of him as that person, and most importantly, struggle to be that person, and have other issues in life, have other things happen in life, and more importantly, grow as a character, because we're not meant to just stagnate as a person. We're meant to grow forward. We're meant to grow forward. I figured I'd pull out the Bible for this one, especially since we're doing Nightcrawler. Romans 8:38 and 9. For I have conceived that neither death or life, neither angels nor demons, neither the present nor the future, nor any powers, neither height or depth, nor anything else in all creation will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Christ Jesus our Lord. Being a man of faith of myself, as I mentioned before, having my own struggles with it as well, really helps me to deeply relate to a character like Kurt. Loving others regardless of who they are, whether they reciprocate it or not, it is a challenge that's still in my life. I always try to embrace Jesus' teachings as much as I possibly can, even when I fail. Seeing a character struggle with the same things reminds me that it not only inspires me, it also inspires others, whether they believe or not. Seeing a character like Kurt in the Xmen shows that not everyone who is religious is going to be condemning and out there to get you. This message strongly comes through the Xmen stories, where his faith is tested, especially when it comes to the character Stryker, who is a reverend who uses his doctrine to enforce this idea that mutants are not of God, that they are hurtful, they're of monstrosity. This hurtful doctrine towards mutants reflects how religion not only can be used as a way to inspire people, but unfortunately as a tool to hurt rather than to heal. And unfortunately, it is still a problem today. But I hope to be a light in the darkness, whether you guys want to believe I do or not. And being able to see a character just move forward and towards the future, a kind and loving heart. I hope I can do the same for you guys and many others, whoever watches my videos as we move along. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video as much as I did. I'm looking forward to covering more X-Men stuff in the future, especially when it comes to a certain boss-swinging X-Man himself, who smells like a dang garbage can. Comment down below your favorite X-Men character, who you enjoy the most, who you want me to talk about later in the future, and let's get a conversation going. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and make sure to ring the bell to be notified of more discussions and videos of the like.